Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
I'm a fan of classic movies.
Hello and welcome to Overlapping Dialogue, a podcast of double features dedicated to programming the finest, most eclectic, and downright bizarre film pairings and cataloging the discussions that ensue. We're your gruesome twosome, Kyle and Levi Huffman. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Levi.
And here we are for our 64th episode, I believe, of Overlapping Dialogue. And it's going to be a real rip-roaring by the seat of our pants kind of episode, if we're being honest.
Yeah. The shorter one.
Definitely going to be shorter.
Y'all deserve some time to actually spend time with your family and not with us. Because you're not...
Well, that and also the movies we're talking about today do not necessarily deserve,
are
frankly...
not family... They're not family entertainment.
Wedding Crashers is in its own way a family... R-rated comedy because it does involve a family of sorts.
I was going to say not with the little kids.
Not American Psycho in any conceivable way. So our movies today are Wedding Crashers and American Psycho.
From what, 2005 and 2000?
Yes. Yes. So again, this episode is going to be a real rip-roaring, we'll just see how it goes, let it all hang out kind of episode.
We don't really particularly like either of these movies very much, and so... I like American Psycho a little more than you do, but I'm no big fan of it myself. So
yeah, I do. This is, as Levi was me and him were talking about this before. Of course, this is in some ways, as Levi said, a good experiment. And what happens if we just don't really respond to the movies and are kind of already scheduled?
Because it's not like the commentaries that we've done where we're already coming to movies that we have an experience with. And are going to continue to talk about it in the moment, obviously.
Yeah.
These would not have made good commentaries either, because we literally would have just been sitting there the whole time, not saying anything.
Yeah.
Particularly during Wedding Crashers, especially, because at least American Psycho is saying something about something, somewhat. Wedding Crashers is just, do all the who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Yeah. But Wedding Crashers, I mean, we had not seen this movie. But in some ways, it didn't matter because we already had seen this movie, and we'll talk about how and why that
felt like it peaked at the moment at the beginning where there was that long montage of them going to all the weddings. And then it was like...
Which itself was overdone.
Right. Then it was like an hour and a half after that kind of happened.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we're just a few... Ooh, sorry about that.
Ding.
See, I really told you this is going to be a let it all hang out episode.
Yeah.
We're not... just a few programming notes. We're not going to do a Blue Plate special for this episode. And just a few things as far as on the horizon just to know about. This episode will, of course, be dropping on Black Friday, which the date of that is the 25th?
6th, I think.
I think the 25th.
No, that's right.
The 25th.
Yeah, 25th. What do I know? A month away from Christmas, funny enough, this year.
But in a very special occasion in many ways, the day before this will have dropped, we're actually going to go back to commentaries ever so briefly, and give you a live commentary of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in honor of Turkey Day. It won't be
live because it'll probably come out on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to edit it as a bonus episode and put it out on Saturday, the day after this will drop. But you may have already been alerted to it via our socials and may have already have heard it. I mean, you know what I mean? It's weird. Like, we've not recorded it yet, but by the time this will have dropped, it'll have happened. So, we were like, well, why don't we do, we said we're not going to totally get rid of commentaries, but we were like, hey, maybe, still do one.
Well, and I think that's a good bonus after this week, because we've,
Yeah, because
And I mean, of course, we're all planning on doing that. But if it doesn't happen for some odd reason, just by the fact that it is Thanksgiving Day, anything can happen. But we're heavily planning on that, so be on the lookout for it anyway.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's just going to be you sitting there listening to us talk about it.
Yeah.
So DVR it, I guess.
And we would have some Blue Plate special things to talk about, but we're going to actually wait. And by then, we'll actually have seen some new movies, too, and we're going to talk about those a little bit.
And I mean, as far as that goes, it'll be better than, what Matt Lauer used to do, which is just like...
Al Roker's probably going to be out there, doing the Al Roker
deal. Talk about him and what a hack he is, Really, the whole NBC Today, system has always been trash. Like, they have always dropped the ball, always sucked, just consistently all the time. It's really quite amazing, actually, how you can be that bad for so long. Because, a group like ABC has always had a really high pedigree.
Good Morning America.
Of Good Morning America people.
Michael Strahan, George Stephanopoulos.
And Robin Roberts. Always been really good. And it's like they just
Sam Champion
crap
to
the
be on
bed
there,
big time, all the time on NBC, on Today. Yeah. But there has been a lot of... see, this is what we'd rather talk about than American Psycho or Wedding Crashers, But there's always been an element to Today, though, that has always brewed controversy or just great YouTube clips. Mostly involving Matt Lauer, of course.
Yeah.
Now, one of those...
I have to say I miss him, but he did bring some weird awkwardness that was palpable when he was on there.
Yeah, that was not on any other channel.
Whether it be with Tom Cruise.
Right.
Or one cult hit for us with Paula Deen.
Well, you know what's funny about the Paula Deen event? Matter of fact, do we want to drop that here?
Yeah,
might as well. Okay.
There's someone evil out there that saw what I had worked for, and they wanted it.
Let's end it on that. Paula Deen, thanks for being here this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Matt. It means a lot to me, and it feels so strange to come to this wonderful, happy place where I've always come so happy. And I have these people believe these horrible, horrible lies when all you have to do is ask the people around me.
Paula Deen.
Because I live my life the way I believe. And like I said, if you've never committed a sin, please pick up that rock, pick up that boulder, and hit me as hard as you can.
We'll end it there. Paula Deen, thank you. And we're back right after this.
Paula Deen.
But
I want to say about that before we dissect that moment is that so we were actually down at Myrtle Beach. I remember when that happened. That was like 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. It was like the early 2010s. It's been like 10 years ago. That's kind of hard to believe.
Was that when you were reading 11/22/63?
No, that would have been before that.
Okay,
I think. Because that was 20.
I don't know why I'm somehow thinking about remembering that book in the midst of all that.
Well, maybe so.
I don't remember.
Well, maybe that was when that was. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, and so I was sitting there watching it, literally, as it was happening, and was just reacting to it in the moment. Now, of course, all that has to do with, if you didn't know, it was actually very pre-Me Too and pre-cancel culture, obviously, being a thing, that she faced a lot. Probably, actually, one of the first big backlashes of that sort, other than like Mel Gibson, that I've seen before. I mean, there were obviously other stuff, but even something like the Michael Jackson stuff felt like that didn't get enough of like a consequence to any of that, and so like anyway, that was one of the first big things about, this person has said this racist thing, they're kind of canceled now, and that's effectively what kind of happened. But that she's going on there and crying and bawling and going on, trying to make us feel bad for her. And that, I mean, you heard it in the clip, they're trying to all right, we're out of time, we need to move on. And Matt Lauer was going to say something like, Paula Deen here in the studio with us. Thank you, Paul. It was like, Paula Deen. And then, she keeps going. It's literally one of the greatest moments in broadcasting history. I mean, and to watch it live was truly something, I got to say. I don't think that, I tell this to my kids all the time, because my kids that I teach, I should say, my kids that I teach are are, you know, about like at their age they're at right now. They're born like 2010. Some of the ones I had last year, like 2009. I tell them all the time, I'm like, y'all really missed out on the 2000s and the 2010s, like, because there was so much madness going on that, like stuff like that. That's just,
and again,
gone.
not
like
to
Karl Rove dancing, Tom Cruise dancing.
Well, again,
Jim Carrey, a lot of dancing was going on.
But I just want to briefly go back to the Tom Cruise Matt Lauer clip, which is more well known.
Right.
That was all about Tom Cruise being kind of justifiably grilled by Lauer over Cruise and such as Scientology stance on psychiatric drugs and also like psychiatry in general. And it's one of those things, like, I would genuinely agree with a lot of things Matt Lauer's saying, but the way Cruise is going after him is so funny when he calls him so glib, you know.
Right. It's kind of like that famous video now of, it was when, I guess, Django Unchained came out. I actually watched this again this week, funny enough. A video of that guy who's like a controversial interviewer or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but anyway, he's like talking to Tarantino about like, what's this violence in your movies?
I'm shutting your butt down.
I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. Like, it's none of your D business what I think about that or whatever. It's just like, yeah. So, anyway, it was quite something to be alive then, and yeah, like I said, and then there was the whole Ann Curry fiasco. I don't remember all the details about that, but that was also something.
And like where she was crying, and he very awkwardly grabbed her and held her.
I've got a screen cap of that on my phone, which is kind of weird, but honestly, I use it just to like throw into random this weird stuff. You know?
Anyways, you know, it's funny because he's not in all active in NBC anymore, but
I think there were like a lot of like. Funny enough,
I
remember that after this had happened to Matt Lauer, I remember there was a lot of stuff of like him going on vacation and being on beaches like with his shirt off.
Yeah, right.
And it was just such a weird like sensation to see Matt Lauer
not in a suit,
right? Because he never was able to go on vacation or do anything, obviously, and nobody cared to see him, right? And when he was gone, they were like, "Oh, good, we won't follow him." Mm-hmm. But now that he's gone, they're like, "Oh, we kind of missed that madness, so let's follow him around while he's on the beach." You know, it was weird.
Yeah,
I remember sitting specifically, it was at an eye doctor appointment, looking through a People magazine and seeing that, and just thinking, "Oh, Matt." Mm-hmm. The times we've had, you know, what a terrible person, by the way. Just want to say definitively.
I will say, I think it's one of his finest moments is his one scene cameo in Lady Bird.
That's true, where he was like talking about the Iraq War on TV. Yeah. Always great to see. Speaking of cameos, Wedding Crashers.
Yeah. Well, first, here is the trailer for 2005's Wedding Crashers.
French Foreign Legion.
Yeah, we lost a lot of good men out there.
Mount Everest.
We lost a lot of really good men out there.
Lost so many good men out there.
Playing with the Yankees?
In the art of crashing weddings.
Sanjay Collins.
Chuck Vindaloo.
Seamus O'Toole.
Bobby O'Shea.
I'm ready to get drunk.
John and Jeremy are the masters.
You know how they say we only use 10% of our brains? I think we only use 10% of our hearts.
Now,
What do we got?
This is the Kentucky Derby of weddings.
they're crashing the biggest wedding of the year.
So what angle are you gonna play here?
I'm gonna go with the balloon animal display for the kids.
I want a bicycle.
Buddy, that's gonna take a lot of balloons.
Make me a bicycle, clown.
And meeting the two girls
John Ryan.
Claire Cleary.
that will bring them to their knees.
I always knew my first time would be on a beach.
First time?
We're gonna be so happy together. I love you.
I'm sorry? I gotta get out of here pronto. I got a stage 5 clinger.
I need some alone time with her.
I'm terrified of this broad.
Here you are.
Hey!
We're all going back to our little place on the shore, and it would be so great if you guys came.
Really?
Oh, I'm gonna run it by my dad.
Don't ask your dad. Don't ask your dad. Don't.
You're going.
I'm not going.
Yes, you are.
You can go if you want.
No, you're gonna be.
I'm not even gonna say it, but you know I'm upset.
From New Line Cinema.
Sorry, how are you guys connected to the family again? Uncle Ned's kids.
You know Uncle Ned, Aunt Liz's brother.
One crasher is falling in love.
Oh, you're gonna cover me. I like my odds here.
Hey, here we go. Hit me.
Hey, is your brother okay?
I can't breathe.
Ah, he's fine.
And the other
That's fun. That's nice. Time out. My leg's cut and bleeding.
is falling apart.
Don't ever leave me.
Ever.
Because I'd find you.
Owen Wilson.
I think I'm in love with her.
Vince Vaughn.
I think that you're nuts. That's what I think.
With Christopher Walken.
No, she's not just another notch on the old belt.
Don't even wear a belt. Beltless.
Wedding Crashers.
Everything's ready for the quail hunt. Ridiculous. Have you even shot one of these things before? They got me!
Ooh. Oh.
Now, interesting, of course, that James Carville and John McCain decided to make cameos and appear.
So, as was said a little bit ago... as was said a little bit ago by Levi, we had not seen this movie. We said this last week before doing this podcast. It was just one of those like perennial 2000s R-rated comedies. I remember when it came out, like it wasn't an Apatow movie, but it like kind of fit alongside a lot of those man-children movies that was being made
too. And as you've talked about a lot, Apatow's movies are usually like extended comedies.
Yeah,
like getting Funny People like almost 2.5 hours or some crap. It's just like. Mm-hmm. No,
and I'm not a fan really of that movie. Right. I'm weirdly fascinated by that movie. I actually, in general, am a fan of Apatow, I will say. But I think what he's doing with the form, some people might roll their eyes at this, is actually kind of sort of interesting as far as what he did with 2000s comedies.
And he tried to do with Pete Davidson and nobody cared.
Yeah, I still kind of want to see that movie just to check it off a list. But
King of Staten Island, why do they even need one?
But not only...
Sorry, Staten Island listeners.
Not only like the movies that Apatow directly directed, of course, hashtag Dean Directo, somebody Levi's a big fan of, on Entertainment Tonight. Mm. But like also the movies he produced, like some of the McKay Farrell comedies like Anchorman and...
Semi-pro.
What's your general perception of that era of comedy film, both alongside or absent of Wedding Crashers in general? Like, what's the legacy of that time to you?
Well, you know what I think, honestly, it's taken a lot of that from is, and we just did this movie, but is from Dumb and Dumber and the Fairleys. Like, they're trying to make these movies, like more of like, that, but specifically there's something about Mary of like, let's make this big, longer comedy that has all these people, and so I don't know that for sure, but I feel like that is a big part of that, maybe.
Well, Wedding Crashers in particular is a version of, we're going to have a lot of kind of oddball scenes or kooky characters or situations, and if we have enough of those, that'll make a movie, right? And it's kind of the idea.
Well, I feel like it's also a way to justify the American comedy in the 2000s was to do that, because, you had movies like Wet Hot American Summer, which is like one of the funniest movies ever made.
Yeah. Also Bradley Cooper.
And that you had movies like that were like, and even something like Movie 43, which looks totally awful, right? I mean, looks like total trash. But those movies are at least attempting to be like, this is just a comedy movie. Like, we're just going to make a comedy. But I feel like at some point, I said, kind of based off of those gross out movies, though, that they're like, oh, let's take this type of thing, but like, make it vulgar and raunchy, but not so much in a physical sense, more of a verbal sense. Yeah. And that's where you get kind of the raunchy, this is just my theory, I don't know, but that's where you kind of get the raunchy comedy, which really, I mean, in a lot of ways kind of started with Wedding Crashers, at least in my memory. I mean, you'd have movies before that were that, obviously. But that became the more mainstream version of the comedy.
And I feel like by the end of the decade, The Hangover was a huge hit, and that kind of then codified what film comedy was, R-rated film comedy.
Because you had stuff like 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up, Apatow movie, all those that were Juno even. Mm-hmm. A lot of these movies that, were about...
Juno is a little more arty
right,
of a movie,
But, like, a lot of those movies that were more mainstream comedies that were trying to be, this thing. Like, trying to be more respectable, in quotes, which is hilarious for a movie that literally has, like, homophobic gay panic subplot.
I want to bring that up in just a little bit,
that is like, this is totally ridiculous. Yeah. Like...
a whole subsection of film comedy we haven't brought up at all was all the parody movies of the 2000s too, like the Holdover Scary Movie, and
that's
then
part of those movies I was talking about.
And those are more outwardly gross out or like
and like
raunchy.
late career ZAZ movies,
Yeah.
you know, like American Carol and stuff like that. That
Yeah.
like, wow, I mean, we ought to talk about that movie someday because that is just a fascinating document of Bush era republicanism. But
so the plot of Wedding Crashers, again, we hadn't seen this movie, but then and I mean, I feel like we've seen maybe little clips or bits here and there, but on the whole, we had not really seen all that much. But it didn't matter.
Like I said, my memory of the movie has always been that it was in the back of a van of one of the people from our church. It was like an empty DVD from like Flick Video.
That just says it all.
And it's just like,
perfect.
I remember seeing that and thinking, why do they have that? Like, I don't know. Even then, even when I was real young, I mean, this came out in 2005. I was like nearly 7 or 7 at this point, and I'm like, why does this person have this? But yeah,
and I think, let me just say too, one thing I think that separates the McKay Farrell movies, which I think are in a slightly elevated, when I say elevated, I'm not talking about like, oh, they're really about something serious, but like, they are like Anchorman and Talladega Nights are two genuinely comedies that still hold up a lot, I think.
Yeah.
They have a point of view.
Yes.
They have a perspective. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily always the funniest thing ever or always work.
Or it's
but there is something going on in those movies. It is a little different.
Well, there's
than
also
just a
willing to
pure
let those
mainstream
characters
comedy.
just be stupid.
Yeah, right.
And not have any virtuosity to them.
Or try to redeem them.
Right. And and like I said, that's a very much a fairly impulse, I think, is that, I mean, with Dumb and Dumber, it's like those people are not redeemable.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you know, like Harry probably,
Yeah.
but like Lloyd is definitely not. I mean, you get something like, there's something about Mary, I feel like that's more of a mainstream, like Ben Stiller is a redeemable character.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's all the other people in the movie. And
he's the least bad.
Right,
You
because
know what
he's
I mean?
still weird.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, that he's going, you know. But, I mean, it's not like he pursued her for years. He just kind of let it go for the most part. And was just like,
But in many ways, he is the avatar of the most benevolent version of past your prime obsession with somebody.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean, he's like the low, that's, and basically even his character, I feel like the movie's like untangling the impulses that is.
Yeah, and so with Owen Wilson in Wedding Crashers, to get on track here.
Yeah. Another,
by the way, Matt Lauer,
another Roland Tenenbaum actor. By the way,
well, that was
he came out of the whole Wes Anderson world.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say too. Is you had some of those more like we'll throw Juno in there too, but Wes Anderson movies. Then you had Baumbach movies, and a lot of these like comedy dramas or like different kind of comedies that were being made too that were around that time. So you had the independent comedy and like Little Miss Sunshine and stuff like that. But yeah, like, so they try to take Owen Wilson and do that with him of, we will make him redeemable.
Yeah.
But then you have Vince Vaughn be more of like the evil foil, even though he turns out to be good in the end too, in quotes.
Yeah.
But, because most of the movie is Owen Wilson like, you went to a funeral? Like, you know, like, what?
Well, he's like, he genuinely falls in love with Rachel McAdams' character, who's like the daughter.
And we haven't explained they crash funerals to get girl. Yeah, so
well,
that's all it is.
Yeah.
They crash. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They crash weddings to hook up with girls, basically.
End of story, pretty much. So, but this one, but this time they really do fall for him. One of the most laughable scenes in the movie is where they're sitting on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. It's just like that. This is literally the space where Martin Luther King Jr. gave the "I Have a Dream" speech. How dare you even just sit by this?
This is the space where Abby Hoffman said a lot of bad words. Like, don't get me started on that.
But this line's repeated. I'm gonna misquote. I can't remember exactly what they say, but something along the lines of like, "Oh, we're still young, but not as young as we used to be, or not really anymore. Not that young." And so it is in step with another impulse that the Apatow McKay movies were about, which was the man-child, can't grow up mentality of a lot of these movies that have a lot of Gen X-ish characters, or maybe slightly on the younger end of Gen X. But that was a big thing about, are we going to remain children forever? Or are we going to ever grow up? Even a really brilliant movie like The Royal Tenenbaums is in some ways scratching that itch, you know? And so, again, God, I was about to say Will Ferrell. Owen Wilson falls in love with Rachel McAdams, who is the daughter of Christopher Walken, who's like a secretary of, I don't remember.
Secretary of the Treasury.
Treasury, I think it was. Who's going to maybe be running for president sometime soon.
That's why we have James Carville and John McCain showing up in the movie.
That just seems so just like, why? Like, is it to grant it some legitimacy in
James
quotes?
Carville, like boomer sooner, baby, or what? No, he's Louisiana.
Ross,
I know that. Yeah, but I'm just like...
He's a Raging Cajun.
Right.
Yeah.
Raging Cajun. Yeah.
Just 2 years later, of course, he would be in Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward.
An actual film. Yeah.
And 3 years later for McCain, he would be, have to take the microphone from a woman who claimed Obama was an Arab or whatever. And no, ma'am. I'd frankly rather talk about that moment real quick. Because why not?
Yeah, sure.
McCain, he got a lot of praise.
Do we need to drop that, or do we just need to assume everybody?
No, let's go ahead and do it.
I'm going to ask you a question. I do not believe in. I can't trust Obama. I have read about him, and he's not. He's an Arab. He is not. No.
No, ma'am. He's a decent family man, citizen that I just happen to have disagreements with on fundamental issues, and that's what this campaign is all about. He's not. Thank you.
McCain, he justifiably got some praise for talking that woman down.
For doing the most basic thing. Yeah.
but then there was a backlash like, he should have said more than that. He still said, no, he's a good man, not an Arab. Like, that there's even in that, like, this condescension. I think that's true to an extent.
Everybody
but
just heard it in the clip, but I feel like I remember he said, that's not what this campaign is about, thank you, or whatever. Right. So he didn't really say a whole lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it was perfectly fine.
And also, in that moment, McCain is not about to go into some big hypothetical argument about what this or that is. I mean, I feel like he handled that pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, for what it was.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, what an era that we lived in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
we had no idea
what it
was.
I mean, Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, No, I mean, if y'all are not aware of because that's the problem with Donald Trump, ultimately, other than everything.
Other than every other thing.
Other than every single thing and every decision he's
Twitter
ever
got restored,
made.
I think, by the way.
Oh, well, of course it did.
Yeah.
Other than everything else about him, the one thing about him that I've always enjoyed was his Rosie O'Donnell feud, which occurred probably around, 2006?
Yeah,
I believe.
like that.
It was like around the Christmas season of 2006. I can't remember the exact, or 2005, 2006, something like that. And so if you're not aware of that, that's one of the big problems with his presidency, though, is that has been obfuscated, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's
and
a tragedy.
She talks like a truck driver. I mean, we just want to drop that now.
Why not?
All right.
Well, Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out. You take a look at her, she's a slob. She talks like a truck driver. Rosie attacked me personally because I was very happy when her talk show failed. The other thing that failed, and this was a real monster, and everybody was suing her, was her magazine. Her magazine called Rosie was a total disaster. So I loved it. I gloat over it. I think it's wonderful because I like to see bad people fail. Rosie failed. I'm happy about it. She's basically a disaster. Well, she called me a snake oil salesman. And, coming from Rosie, that's pretty low because when you look at her and when you see the mind is weak. I don't see it. I don't get it. I never understood. How does she even get on television? I believe Barbara made a terrible mistake putting her on, and I think Barbara's probably paying a big price. If I were running The View, I'd fire Rosie. I mean, I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. I'd say, Rosie, you're fired. We're all a little chubby, but Rosie's just worse than most of us. But it's not the chubbiness. Rosie is a very unattractive person, both inside and out. Rosie's a person that's very lucky to have her girlfriend. And she better be careful or I'll send one of my friends over to pick up her girlfriend. Why would she stay with Rosie if she had another choice? She's trying to use ABC and The View to get even with me. But with me, we fight back. I'll probably sue Rosie because she doesn't tell the facts. As an example, I'm worth many billions of dollars. Now, she said I was bankrupt. I never went bankrupt. So probably I'll sue her because it would be fun. I'd like to take some money out of her fat ass pockets. I actually think they ought to look at her whole life and see where she's coming from because I think she's got some very deep-seated problems. Perhaps it should be Rosie that goes to rehab. Rosie is a loser.
This is having way more drops in than I thought it was going to have. But that's
anyway,
fine.
Wedding Crashers.
So, again, we're just circling around this. This movie was exactly what we knew it was going to be. There was not, one genuinely really surprising moment, I don't think, in this whole movie. There were things that made me laugh, genuinely. But there was not one plot beat where I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, because,
there's a
certain, with the style of this type of comedy, there's a certain expectation, pacing-wise, when you look at that 2-hour runtime, that you're going to have an extended, what we call, and patented, we've come up with this, the downtime. Movie, right?
Which this has a few.
We could write a whole book on the downtime. I mean, seriously. And y'all have heard us talk about it ad nauseum on here, out there in Radio Land.
I mean, we saw it in Dumb and Dumber has it too.
Oh, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's and that movie's about 2 hours. It's like 1 hour and 40 something. I mean, it's a little bit longer.
A little baggier.
But I think the normal version, I think even the little unrated version that we watched is like almost 2 hours. So.
Yeah.
But that with those types of movies, you're already going to see, about an hour and a half in, or a little less, hour and 20 something, we're going to have a whole situation where, everything, and then that's what happens with Owen Wilson's character, where everything comes out. Oh, he's not friends with him. He's reading books about killing himself and all that stuff. And it all, even that just becomes so predictable,
I will say the Will Ferrell scene, which we put in last week, that is a little bit of a shot in the arm. All of a sudden.
What a freak.
Like that character who's not been at all in the movie. He's been referenced before, but that he is a total kind of rando shot in the arm towards the end.
And you know what I feel like is the problem with the movie ultimately, though, other than,
just being mediocre.
Is the ending of the movie, where it's decided, you know what? Let's do the same thing we've been doing. But now we got the girl on our arm. Yeah. And it's just like, why would it? No. It's just so dumb. You know what I mean? It's just like, they're like, let's go do it again. Like, no.
Yeah.
But whatever.
But maybe like 10 years from now or a little less, we'll have Funeral Crashers, and it's like this. It's like, well, how we've aged,
It's like it's like Wild Hogs, Old Dogs.
Yeah. We didn't talk about that stuff. That's a whole other subsection of idiocy. But
now you have seen Wild Hogs, right? Didn't you and our dad watch that?
Yeah, I've not seen. I don't think all of Old Dogs.
Is that an actual sequel? To Wild Hogs? I didn't think so.
No, it's a
spiritual sequel.
Yeah.
Right. Or a spiritual continuation.
I guess, I'm trying to think, I guess really it's just got Travolta in it again. I don't know, the main actors or cast members.
Oh, is Tim Allen not back in that?
No, I think Robin Williams is the co-lead of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
maybe one day we'll get around to that.
Wild Hogs, I remember there's that. I remember that Wild Hogs was... I haven't even seen the movie, but I remember there was that section.
That's another one you know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
You don't even had to have seen it.
Well, it's like I've seen that sequence where they skinny dip or whatever 5 or 6 times on cable. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to see this. Yeah. But I keep turning over to it. But you can't turn away. It's just like... But one of my favorite things about that movie, I remember, is that Ray Liotta is the villain.
Yeah.
He's like the leader of a
biker gang, yeah.
And there's a section where there's a bunch of gas on the ground or something, and it's like leading back to their clubhouse or something, and he throws a cigarette down and it blows the whole place up, and he's like, Karen, or something, and anyway, but yeah, so yeah, where were we going with all that?
Wild Hogs, Old Dogs, the resolution,
the moment in Skyfall where Moneypenny's like, old dog,
I'm the money, every penny of it. That's in Casino Royale, of course, but
that's so dumb because no, it's Vesper is who that is.
That was that was a little bit of ahead of its time, stupid moment in a great movie.
Really good movie,
but reference dropping like this, Moneypenny, right?
It's this is why Superman works alone, crap, halfway to Metropolis by now, in Batman Forever, please,
leave him out of this.
Yeah, for a good movie, but no, not Batman and Robin. We're talking about Batman Forever, which you're probably like, what? That's a good movie? Yeah, watch it again. Mm-hmm. Watch it until it becomes good.
I will say, I don't I don't know. Like, if I had to give, I don't think I've rated this really yet. If I had to give Wedding Crashers a rating, it would be 2.5. Maybe if I'm in the right enough mood, 3 stars.
I actually gave it 3, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't normally like Owen Wilson or Vince Vaughn. I like Owen Wilson fine enough.
I was going to say, I like Owen Wilson. And specifically in the Wes Anderson stuff.
I mean, he's fine. No, I mean, he's like really great in like those movies.
Yeah.
But like everything else, it's just kind of like whatever.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like Nicolas Cage, where he's kind of become an institution of like,
wow,
and
like
I'm just so tired of that.
Yeah.
Just in general, that it's like nothing against him exactly.
Yeah.
But Vince Vaughn is someone I generally just am not very pleased with. But I thought he was actually really funny in this, and I was kind of surprised by that, and so. That I was so pleased by his performance.
Yeah.
That I was kind of like, I kind of like this.
I mean, it is a little overbaked, but Isla Fisher, I think, is also funny in the movie. Is like the crazy, horny, has a crush on Vince Vaughn's
Bradley
character.
Cooper, I literally could not watch. Like, that just pissed me off. I
like Bradley Cooper generally.
Yeah.
He has a tendency, though, in some of these era of comedies, before he really was allowed to be a little bit more of a dramatic actor, which I think is really what he wanted to do.
No, I like him more now, but going back and thinking about him then, I just get pissed off. It just aggravates me. But
he's funny in Wet Hot, but that's subdued compared to this. And that's crazy to call anything in that movie.
Oh, yeah, that's a subdued performance compared to this one. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And he just plays the total a-hole boyfriend that you're not supposed to like at all.
One of my favorite moments in that is like, I'm really puking my guts out. He's like, why don't you leave me alone or whatever.
Well, she's like trying to be sensitive with him.
Right. And he's like, oh, what are you going to cry or whatever?
And he gets all mad at her for seeing him there.
See me in a private moment or whatever. I was like, you need to make an appointment. Like,
what's the gay panic brother? What was his name? Todd
was the character's name. I don't remember the actor's name.
That was like, I remember early on we saw him in the background or something. We were like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, just like, and then it can't just be he's a weird arty brother. It can't just be that. It has to be that he has this gay crush on Vince Vaughn that isn't just a gay crush, but that has a rapist / sexual.
Keira O'Donnell says he's also an ambulance, American Sniper, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Paul Blart Marcotte. Yeah.
But he can't just have a gay affair, want to have a gay love affair with him. It has to be this psychosexual rapist quality to it, sexual assault quality. Which, again, I'm not going to lay all the problems with gay panic on just this movie, because this is a problem that goes well beyond just this movie. But the fact that it was here was nonetheless try and frankly disgusting in its own way. And I mean, again, we go to comedies to laugh, not necessarily to have in broad brushes to be painted, but nonetheless, that was something that was easily cuttable.
Well,
from
and it's also
been.
just, other than just obviously the gay panic to it, it's also just artists are a bunch of, you insert that word there that you all know, the F slur, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole attitude that movie has, which okay, I mean, because nobody involved here is a real artist, so I guess that's what they do think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, that was something that stuck out to me especially too, is like, sensitive. And I mean, the same thing with Bradley Cooper's character in the movie is it's like, sensitivity, and just, which ultimately the movie somewhat proves that to be, oh no, we need to have sensitive men. But the whole time had made fun of this other character and poked fun at this other gay character.
But it's almost like we have to, we got to play the game and do the tap dance to get what we really want, and if being sensitive is part of that, then I guess we'll do it. Right. It's like it's almost against its will,
because even in the climactic moment where he's like, what I've learned moment, it's like friggin' the end of Jerry Springer, like Jerry's Thought or whatever. What do they call that?
It's like Jerry's Final Thought.
Final Thought, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it's like his Jerry's Final Thought of the movie. That's what I'm going to start calling that stuff. That he's like...
There's a Jerry's Final Thought compilation on YouTube, by the way.
He's like, if you go see a stripper while you're married, or something. But his final thought, the whole thing's like, I crashed a funeral today. And it's like, everybody's like, oh, and then he's turned to Vince and like, he's cleaning up, by the way. And it's just like, so you haven't learned anything. It's like, that was one of the most unearned endings ever. Everything about
well, then
that
even
was
that
just
it ends with like Will Ferrell's character like winking at Todd, and Todd like, "Oh, I'm gonna like fall in love with you
have
and
gay sex with him." It's just like
so juvenile.
Yeah, it's
like,
so stupid. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
But again, I mean,
the meatloaf. F. Well, you know.
But again, there was enough genuine little moments, especially the stuff with Vince Vaughn just randomly getting mad or various things that made me laugh enough.
Yeah, and him,
also Henry Gibson in the movie when you say something about
that was so random. Like, and then also, I mean, Henry Gibson shows up in the most random crap anyway because like he was of course in Blues Brothers as like, which I don't want to like debase Blues Brothers because that's clearly a great movie. Yeah. But that was a type of this movie at that time.
Yes.
And for Henry Gibson to go from like Robert Altman movies to like,
he was on like Laughing, right, and some of those.
Yeah. No, I mean he was a
TV
comedic actor.
Yeah.
But like to go from that to like, Blues Brothers is neo-Nazi.
It's not even that far removed from
what?
Magnolia, even thinking about from him.
The Weeping Willow. Yeah. I am listening intently. But yeah, just him being in that, and then also I like that whole sequence where they're playing football and Vince Vaughn keeps getting like hurt during that.
Oh
that
yeah,
was
like
funny.
genuinely
right, like literally. There's that
put
part
him in the blue tent.
There's that part where he got pushed back so hard by Bradley Cooper. I know it wasn't, but it almost looked, it was like a stunt double. You could tell, but it almost looked like a dummy. He was thrown so hard that it was just fun.
And then he gets shot in the butt.
Yes, like he would literally be dead,
or like have
let
serious
alone
injuries,
he would his legs would have been blown out from under him. Like he kept standing up after he got shot in the butt with a shotgun. Like he would literally be blown away. Like I don't know. Yeah, that was dumb. Unless it was a type of, I mean, it might have been a type of different shell where it hit quail. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about any of that. Yeah. Any of my kids listening that hunt, let me know. Yeah. Because I have some.
So any other thoughts on Wedding Crashers? Again, not even quite as bad as I'm maybe making it sound. Like I said, I'd give it 2.5
You've
or 3
all seen
stars.
It,
like, whether you have or not.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
Whether you like it or not, you've seen it. Whether you wanted to or not.
So, that's Wedding Crashers.
There was that, there is one part of that I think is inherently funny of the whole gay panic thing, is that moment where like there's the painting of like Vince Vaughn as like Adam, basically over on the like the mantle, and like, well, what's kind of funny about that scene, honestly, is that he already got tied up by Isla Fisher's character, and Christopher Walken comes in, he's still like that, and Todd's like in the closet, which is just such a clear like, I'm in the closet. It's just so dumb. And like, and then, but anyway, and he like looks over and sees that the painting's there, and he's like, and it's like, why are you not saying anything about any of this? That there's like a weird painting of this man over there, he's tied to the bed, and he clearly is like something weird going on, and you're just like, I will think on this. A real Jack Nicholson, and I think about this moment
from the next year, of course.
Yes,
they're part of.
He was climbing up the top sail. He lost his leg,
I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention Coldplay's "Sparks" getting dropped in this movie,
which reminded me of how good that song.
I love that song, but it really just added the 2000s to it.
In case you didn't know, we are Coldplay fans. Kyle, especially, is like your favorite band. But and if you don't like them, then you don't listen to this podcast.
But it made me think of another one of the most iconic 2000s needle drops, which is Clocks in the Peter Pan trailer.
Oh my God,
that's like peak 2000s.
That's another thing where it's like
those 03 that came out. I don't remember.
No, it was 04 because I remember that showed before the SpongeBob SquarePants movie trailer. That trailer I remember was before that. It was 2004, wasn't it?
I believe it was 2003.
Really?
Yeah.
When was it?
December, Christmas of that 03.
Huh.
Because SpongeBob was 05.
No, it was 04.
Okay.
I remember. It was Thanksgiving of 04. Maybe, okay, now I'm remembering. We went and saw that movie. Okay, all my memories are jumbled up. We went and saw that movie at, who was Captain Hook in that, by the way?
It was Jason Isaacs.
That's right. Yeah, no, he was.
That's probably one of the better things about it.
That movie, we went and saw at the Crown Cinema down at on Highway 70 in Hickory.
Yeah.
When that was still there. It was the Crown 4, wasn't it? What was it called?
Yeah.
Royal Fort. I don't. Anyway, we went there to see that. I remember, and then about a year later, we went to see the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. But I think also what I'm remembering this in my mind is the trailer for Peter Pan is on the SpongeBob SquarePants movie DVD. So all of that is kind of mixed together in my mind. Why they put that trailer so late? Because I remember that DVD didn't come out until like Easter of 2005, the DVD. And that movie had come out in like Christmas of 03. I don't know why they were still showing that trailer for that on that DVD.
It just kind of speaks that along that era of your life. It's all kind of jumbled together.
Right.
And it all just bleeds into one another.
Anyway.
But again, I remember this movie just being one of those, Wedding Crashers, R-rated comedy, and just never got around to seeing it.
I know that we joke about that, to go back to Peter Pan for a moment. I know we joke about the clocks being used in that trailer, but randomly one of the best trailer usages of music. It's just so memorable to me, I guess.
Well, it fits.
It fits the thing. That's what I'm saying. It actually really fits it. I know it's kind of funny.
And I love the song Sparks. Very kind of forced into this movie.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's just
this
so,
movie is not a Coldplay movie.
Yeah,
no, it's not that at all. I'm
sure they enjoyed
that
the check.
sensitivity they're looking for is
Right.
that's why they're putting that there.
Yeah, right.
But no, it doesn't.
And that is an example of we don't have that, so let's just throw in a piece of music to
just
earn
like
that.
Patrick Bateman walking around to Walking on Sunshine.
Speaking of, here's the trailer for American Psycho.
New card. What do you think?
Whoa, very nice.
Patrick, you're so sweet.
Jean,
Yes, Patrick?
would you like to accompany me to dinner?
Sabrina, why don't you dance a little? Christy, get down on your knees. We're not through yet.
That's a wonderful suit. Looks so soft.
I don't think I can control myself. If you stay, something bad will happen. I feel lethal, on the verge of frenzy. I think my mask of sanity is about to slip. Do you have any witnesses or fingerprints?
Actually, yes.
Human.
I know my behavior can be erratic sometimes.
Hey, Paul!
So, what do you do?
I'm into, murders and executions mostly. I have all the characteristics of a human being, but not a single clear, identifiable emotion. I simply am not there.
I just had to kill a lot of people!
Curious trailer, by the way, for that. That's not exactly what I was expecting for that.
Very 2000s, like, very, what Detective Dormer didn't know was that murder was only part of the plan. Like, what else could be part of that plan other than murder? You know? We're talking about the trailer for Insomnia, by the way, the Christopher Nolan film.
Yeah.
What? Like, murder was only part of the plan.
Only a portion.
Only like a little bit, like 1% murder, 99% tax fraud. I don't know. Like what part of that? I don't know.
Murder was part of the movie, this movie's plan or whatever. So we have not read the Bret Easton Ellis novel. That should be get that out of the way.
And I want to actually read Ellis, someone who I pretty much loathe. For the most part, as a whole.
He's somebody in general. He loves kicking the hornet's nest and being controversial for the sake of being
but
controversial.
I am interested in his work, but
but I've seen this movie.
He and Chuck Palahniuk are kind of one. I mean, all
Gen
that Rat
X.
Pack, Gen X, yeah, and that's also part of the same thing.
I've seen this movie maybe 2 or 3 times before the most recent time we watched this. I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
And somehow I think a little bit less of it every new time I've seen it.
And I thought a little more of it, strangely.
Yeah, so we might have divergent opinions on this.
Not
but,
much.
So the the story is about Patrick Bateman, who this is like set basically in the late 80s. I don't know if it gives
87.
87. So set in 1987, and Patrick Bateman is it doesn't really get into a lot of specifics, but basically works on Wall Street for some financial firm. Yeah. But really, he's an American psycho. Really, he kills people. The whole central metaphor of this movie is among the most low-hanging fruit I can think of. Now, I'm not someone who... We talked about this last week. I don't think much of the 80s in general. I don't think much of the whole culture that bred greed, for lack of a better word, is good, of like Wall Street. And, that was in and of itself a little bit of a takedown of this in some ways.
Strangely, it was, and it wasn't. Yeah. We'll talk about Wall Street another day. That's a whole question mark of a movie.
Certainly the sequel. That's even worth talking about more than maybe the first one. But I found the central metaphor of this movie to be just very low-hanging fruit, as I said earlier. It's like, bro, just check this out, bro. Like, what if, bro, like a guy who works on tax, or not taxes, but works on Wall Street, bro, like kill people, bro. Like, what if, bro, bro?
Yeah, because
that's so okay.
The whole inherent, I feel like,
so what
metaphor of them. I feel like you could boil the whole movie down into one moment. It's not even the scene that everyone thinks of with the business cards. It's the scene later with the business card where the what's that guy's name that's on.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway, and like he's gay, by the way.
Yeah.
But where he shows him his business card, and what's his name?
Matt Ross is Matt the actor's Ross, name is Louis Carruthers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that character is showing him that, and then he literally goes to like choke him to death, but doesn't do. He ends up not doing it. But literally as competition. Like, there's this competition between these people, and it's literally like a social Darwinist, like, belief in competition if you literally have to kill the other person. I mean, like I said, you're right that that's all low-hanging fruit. I'm a little more interested in it than you are, just by the sense of there had to be something that literally did that.
Yeah.
Physically. And, I mean, at the time, I feel like that was still pretty... Now, we kind of scoff at it, but I feel like at the time... But at the same time, it was a big deal when it came out as far as that. But at the same time, I think it hides a lot of, or it puts a lot of that on in the guise of all of its other controversy of the violence and the sexuality of both the book and the movie. That is that
again, the
extreme.
whole greed of Wall Street and whatnot had been already critiqued by such things as the movie Wall Street. And again, we can debate or talk about the extent to which that's. What its ethics or morality is, but nonetheless, it was like about that world.
Right.
I've not read Bonfire of the Vanities, but that's widely known as kind of a huge critique or takedown, both the book and the movie, of the world of Wall Street. It just
because the movie was kind of a takedown of Brian De Palma, as it turns out.
I don't know the circumstances really of Bret Easton Ellis's origins of this story and what became the novel, but it just sounds like and seems like something that he kind of mentioned at a party, kind of half-heartedly. Somebody's like, "Yeah, you should write that," and then just everything else came out of that. I do think among the more chilling aspects of the movie and the story, I imagine the book has a little bit of this too. Is the whole idea of that Patrick Bateman is an abstraction, that Patrick Bateman is not a real thing, and he's doing that when he's talking about his whole skincare routine, and he's like literally peeling off his face. But ultimately, that's so like surface level, I think. And I think if this movie was actually... The movie is a satire and does have a sense of humor, but the movie should have frankly been directed by somebody like, I don't know, Brian De Palma, in a weird way. I think somebody who has a little bit more of a sense of style than Mary Herron.
Well,
is willing to kind of indulge in the absurdity a little bit more. I feel like this movie actually is taking itself a little too seriously. Maybe that's a reflection of the book itself is also taking itself too seriously, so I'm not going to lay all that on her.
Ellis takes himself very seriously.
Yeah.
That's... excuse me. That's a whole part of the movie, I think, too, is that somebody said this, and we didn't even bother to read the reviews for this, I'll be honest. But I remember seeing somewhere, somebody wrote, I saw this on Wikipedia page, somebody said that it gets more and more surreal as the movie goes, but we don't really care anymore. You know, and it's kind of just like that. Yeah, particularly in the last like half hour of the movie.
Yeah,
I mean, we have him shooting cops. We have him trying to put a daggum like kitten in a ATM. Is like cop cars explode.
Yeah,
helicopters are looking for him. Like all these things that are inherently more surreal happen. But yet we're just kind of like.
I think honestly, I would imagine. I don't know. Is the book that same ending? Do we know, or is it follows that?
Clue.
I don't really know myself. Let's just take it as it is. That it probably is a version of that. I don't know.
I'll kind of look into it here and see.
But at least looking at the movie, I think that's such a cop out to just say, "Oh, it was all kind of a dream," or it was all kind of, it was all not really real. It was all a fantasy. I find that to be such a cop out. Now, there are certain stories where that is a justifiable end, I think, to the narrative. But for this, I just found that to be like, okay, so why do I care then the whole time? And I was saying this earlier today, I am no fan of Ronald Wilson Reagan, President of the United States. But at the very end of the movie, it's like, it kind of concludes with, him and his quote friends. There's no real friendship in this movie. Everybody's just a vain, idiotic, soulless monster in their own ways. Of them sitting around kind of while they're at one of a billion dinner dates in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what percentage of this movie is about making plans for lunch or dinner somewhere.
It's a very Manhattanite.
Which that in itself, I know, is part of the satire, but
yes, but at the same time, though, Ella says and I'm pretty sure he's from New York. I'm not certain. Let me actually look that up. But he lived there, of course. He's actually from Los Angeles originally.
Okay.
But I think that he was from there, lived there for a while. But that whole Manhattanite idea of person is so much because there's all these scenes where they're like making fun of look at all the food and these types of food and like the shrimp arugula or whatever. I don't know. All this stuff that don't even sound real. There's clearly a like satire element to that, but at the same time it engages in it and it revels in it, and it's like, okay, I don't really care.
But that concluding scene where it's like, oh, Iran-Contra is going on, and I just feel like the movie's just hitting us over the head like, Ronald Wilson Reagan is the real American psycho.
Just like George Bush was the real American idiot,
But I'm just so like, again, I'm no Reagan fan, but I'm like, just shut up. Like, what are you even trying to say with this? Like, this whole thing's been utter nonsense most of the time. You don't know what this is all about. What's the metaphor? What are we even trying to say here at all? And it's just like shrugging and looking at us like, isn't all this just a product of the greed that he invented? And it's just like, I just find it to be so disingenuous to me and just so like empty. And so like, that's the best you had to conclude this whole thing on is like drawing like this connection to Iran-Contra for all its own problems and issues. It's like, okay, what does that have to do with this psycho? This American psycho of all nationalities. Like, what does this have to do at all with him?
Like, not a German psycho. Not a French psycho.
Should this be like a franchise where every movie gets their crack at what their version of the psycho is?
Not a Moroccan psycho, Like, no.
But,
an American psycho.
But speaking of earlier, when I was talking about De Palma, like, there's some like very heavy Bernard Herrmann-esque music drops in this.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is that Herron bases a lot of her style off Hitchcock, off De Palma.
Yeah. But it doesn't really, I mean, it's in theory has this satirical element, but I feel like it's still too ponderous to like really revel in that style and the way that it should have been handled, But I don't know. I feel like I've been talking a lot about it. What are some thoughts you have about it? It might be a little more positive.
To go into the style, this section, some negative thoughts. To go into the style briefly, there's moments like that scene in. I feel like it's actually the most kind of essential scene in the movie in a lot of ways. Quintessential scene is in the scene where he's with Chloe Sevigny. In his apartment, and
where he's maybe gonna kill her,
right? And like literally, the scene's going on, and it's just like a totally normal, normal interaction of a scene. And the first, other than just the idea that, oh, he's killed people before, he might do it again, immediately or whatever, that it seems like the first real indication that something might happen is that he opens his freezer and a woman's head's in there. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, the shot is so goofy and ridiculous that just immediately takes me out of the scene. I'm just like, the whole, like, structure and fabric and pacing of this scene has been so disrupted that I cannot re-enter it. Like, yeah. In fact, that's kind of what the whole movie is it's like trying to put this wavelength of, like, pretentiousness over itself, but then it engages in stuff like that, which, like you said, if it would have engaged more, it would be more inherently absurd and more worthwhile, but it does it so sparingly and intending to be shocking that it just doesn't, the images don't gel with the narrative, just like...
And I think, weirdly, to make this movie more funny would have made it more disturbing.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to say, but I think, like, but instead it gets ponderous, and then you're kind of laughing at how seriously it's taking itself instead of laughing at the horror and then feeling reviled by. I don't know. It's just the calculus is off. But I also wonder if, again, this is still the best version of this story, because, again, I've not read the book, and this might have been really one of the more straightforward ways to do the book. I don't know, or in terms of, like...
Well, I was looking about the book that it ends the same way, where that character's like, no, I just had dinner with that guy last week. And ultimately, that is something I kind of find a little interesting about the movie, and I guess the book, is that, because you're right, it is a cop-out that it lets him get off from all that. But at the same time, I think it all just is representative. All this goes on within these people's minds is this consuming greed that literally, like, that's the way they think about the world, is in those terms. I think that's very important, because, I mean, obviously you have stuff like the Wall Street movies and other stuff that do that, somewhat. But I feel like taking that to that extreme, I feel like whether one likes it or not, I guess just had to happen at some point. And I find at least potentially interesting and relatively interesting, but is still, like, very surface level.
I think the ideas it strives for are sophisticated, but the execution is just not.
Yeah,
and like I said, I think it makes for a good dinner party. What if a movie was made or a book was written about this? And it's okay, but then you sit down and actually do it, and at least the version of it we see in this film is like, that was it. This doesn't go much far beyond the premise that I was told, anyways. We don't really get any real backstory into who Patrick Bateman is prior to this. We don't really know what his family life was. I'm not saying we need to necessarily have that, but nothing is too, and I think I don't totally have my mind made up about this, but it's just a hypothetical to ask. Do we think this narrative, at least in this movie, has any sort of empathy or sympathy for Patrick Bateman itself? Because I think there are moments in which it's like we're supposed to pity him. Or pity, like, oh, he can't connect.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to express himself. I feel like there's, like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but
yeah.
I feel like that there's at least moments where it's trying to make us feel, quote, bad for him or empathize with him in some way. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, because I don't know. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I feel like most of the time, you know what they say, if you ask, am I crazy, you're not crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And somebody that would recognize that. I feel like his internal monologues that we hear in the movie are unrealistic in the sense that they're so self-reflexive to the point where they're unrealistic, I think. And so in that point, it's like, okay, then what are they intended to do other than hit home the point of the themes is for us to pity the guy by saying, oh, that's a shame he can't connect. It's wanting us to engender that sympathy for him. So, I think you're right about that there is an element of that at play that is wanting us to feel that.
What do we think about the movie's use of pop music? Because that's kind of a key thing, is like wanting to kill people to, Tip to Be Square, Huey Lewis in the News. He talks a little bit about, what's some other pop acts?
Phil Collins.
Phil Collins, of course.
Yeah.
There's somebody else. Is it? At one point, he talks about. Was it? Whitney Houston. I think he's talking about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is this supposed to be one of those Gen X clever and cool? Oh, like, is this just as far as if this was done in the book, a slightly earlier version of Stuck in the Middle with You while a man's ear's getting cut off? Like, is it just like, this like upbeat, cool, fun thing mixed with this horrific violence? That was just something that was very Gen X. What were your general thoughts or ideas about the use of music in this movie too, other than the score?
I mean, I like the music.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the problem, is that I like the music so much I enjoy hearing it. But yeah, I mean, it's all very surface level about we all have those ideas about, people who are creative or think in these ways, I guess, think about ideas of, using this song in this way or doing this way, and like being intentionally, taking a happy song and showing something bad. Like,
we talked about Singing in the Rain with Clockwork Orange. I feel like that still feels transgressive.
Yeah.
And still feels like makes you uncomfortable, and you don't always like it, but it is something that is trying. And actually what a lot of this is trying to go for and just fails to achieve that.
Yeah, and I think, excuse me, talking about this movie bores me to a certain extent. Yeah, and I think that it's just been done, and it's kind of like, okay, whatever. It's just the same thing in a different, set of appearance. It's just, So I mean, ultimately, I like the songs themselves, so that's kind of, but their use of them, it's
Mm-hmm.
But and then it said the Bernard Herrmann score. It's like, we've all done that. We've done this. Move on. I mean, because it's a lot like Rope in certain ways. Or about these people who shouldn't do these things and seem
should
all
know better,
well put together, but they do it anyway. And it's almost
there's a psychosexual element.
Yeah, and then it's almost combining the two characters in Rope into one character.
Yeah.
This
is a huge moment too for Christian Bale in terms of an early big role for him. I think I mentioned this last week. He said he based part of his performance on Patrick Bateman on an interview of Tom Cruise on David Letterman, which I thought was an interesting revelation on his part. I think Bale's good in this movie. I think he became an even better actor in the years to come.
Yeah.
Because there are parts where his mania or manicness starts to be unspooled and unhinged in a way that betrays, I think, what this is trying to do in terms of trying to hide or mask these things. But I don't know, maybe that was the right impulse on his part in those moments. But again, this was something that really shot him up in the conversation of being an important actor of his generation. And again, I think he's gone on to do much better things than this. But nonetheless, any other last thoughts or ideas about American
Not really.
Psycho?
I mean, it's a movie that and a whole story that I feel like is, necessary to a certain extent, of saying, okay, we've done that and move on, but at the same time, we've done that already. So I don't know. It's kind of like it's an amalgamation of different things that it isn't original enough to warrant itself, I don't think, in certain ways.
Yeah. I know the book itself was a key Gen X text in the same way that the cinema of Quentin Tarantino or the literature of David Foster Wallace
or Chuck Palahniuk
were.
With Fight Club and his books. So.
And a lot of those are ultimately about that, that dance of pleasure and psychosis that a generation raised on violence via television or elsewhere, how that realized itself. But yeah, so that's American Psycho. We watched both this and Wedding Crashers on HBO Max. And again, I know this wasn't quite the episode that we had maybe expected, but I do think they are actually a good double feature about sociopathic man-children
who work in office jobs.
Yeah, who work in office jobs, and the madness that ensues in their own ways. So, Mr. Probst, what have we got next
Mr.
week?
Itch.
What have we got next week?
Stay tuned for scenes from our next episode.
I don't know what we're supposed to say.
There is nothing in the universe that we could agree on.
Well, you got that right.
Okay, everybody, now let's give a nice, warm Winterfest welcome to the Santa Baby.
Now that is something we could agree on. I mean, that's got it going on up there. Look at that. You ready?
Yeah.
Well, you're a guy, right?
Yeah.
Come on. Hey, is it getting hot out here, or is it just you girls? Oh, nice dip. Wow. Ow.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Woo.
Hey, baby, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Oh, God, I'm your daddy. I'm your daddy. I'm your daddy. Ah,
my eyes.
Oh, God.
My eyes. My eyes. My eyes.
We're going to hell.
You think I don't know that?
You know, for 1 second, I let myself think you were a normal guy, and this is what happened.
You blame me for this? Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy?
The annual Winterfest speed skating races will begin in 5 minutes.
Luther, your face.
What about it?
It's like it's frozen or something.
Oh, this. I got a Botox injection today.
Botox treatment.
Botox. They take a big needle and inject it into your forehead, and it freezes your face like this. I read it in a health magazine.
And how long are you going to be like this?
Well, this is temporary. And then, you got all your wrinkles are gone. You should try it.
Yeah, well, you ought to get your money back. Luther, I can't live like this anymore.
Huh?
We can't go out. Everywhere we go, people are whispering behind our backs. I can't go home. It's too depressing. I mean, there's no tree, and no lights, and no music. I can't talk to you. You're just consumed with yourself.
That's not true.
Look how far you've gone.
Amazing.
I mean, turning our lawn into an ice rink.
I can't feel anything.
I mean, somebody could have broken their leg or their neck. I mean, you could have put one of those carolers in the hospital.
And that would be a bad thing.
Luther!
I know this has been tough on you, but in just one day, 24 hours, we'll be on that trip. And it's all gonna be better. I promise.
I don't know.
Hey. Go to...
You know, those two
If you're
clips,
not aware of Mr. Itch, then look that up, but we're not going to go into that now.
Yeah, Mr. Itch. First name Gabe. Put it together.
You finished it. I just brought it up. Yeah. You finished it, so there you go.
So, you know, if, like, gun to my head, I could probably, if I think long and hard enough, tell you what the difference between Christmas with the Cranks and Deck the Halls is. But it's going to have to take something that desperate before I watch it again.
Well, I'll tell you.
Really remember what the differences are.
Well, actually, it's interesting because
it's Christmas season, and we're going to be doing Deck the Halls and Christmas with the Cranks next week.
In my memory, what I understand about both movies, what I've been told, by myself, because as we know, Kanye West learns most by himself talking,
not
learning from his own, learning from his own speech.
Yeah.
Which is literally, I mean, I know I don't have to tell you all this, literally impossible.
Yeah.
But that what I understand and remember about those movies is that they're both kind of about people who do not want to celebrate Christmas. As in the Cranks are like, oh, let's just not even do Christmas this year. Let's go on a vacation. We're not going to do that whole thing. We're going to be intentionally anal about Christmas.
Yeah.
Then what I remember about, at least I said in memory, about Deck the Halls, because I've actually seen Christmas with the Cranks again since I saw it in theaters. That has not been the case with Deck the Halls. But what I remember about that is Matthew Broderick's character being a little more of a Scrooge type of like, not, celebrate whatever, but like, and then like Danny DeVito is just like all out Christmas fiend. Right.
What are they? Are they like dad-in-law and son-in-law?
No, it's
like,
that he's the neighbor that moves in. I remember that about it is like Danny DeVito's in it because the moment that this is so memorable to me, the moment in that movie that he first appears is like him. It's like not showing him, but them starting to move in, and like an ornament falls out of his pocket, and it's like, like Christmas is coming, like and it's just like move away, like whole kind of attitude about itself. So yeah, that's what I remember. So both of them are about people who do not care about the true meaning of Christmas.
Yeah,
which is consumerism. I guess.
And then there's Christmas with the Cranks.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Both movies appeal to that.
Yeah. But that's got Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis in that.
As well as Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Have we done a Dan Aykroyd movie yet officially? No. Well, we've talked about 1941 at length. Don't worry. We'll get to go after him again.
Yeah. We could have easily done Fred Claus and just done back-to-back Vince Vaughn movies, too.
That's another movie that...
has actually a semi-interesting premise.
Yeah.
And even has, Paul Giamatti as Santa in it.
And even had in the trailer, I'm all about tough love, baby. Like moment, from Giamatti as Santa Claus
himself.
Who is now playing Scrooge in an ad for Verizon.
Yeah.
Free phone. The city center. Come on, Rhino. It's like...
What a career. When Paul Giamatti, when he's doing his lifetime achievement stuff.
Is that Cinderella Man, Billions, Shoot 'em
Nutty
Up.
Professor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just what a career he's given us.
That's an image that's going to keep me up night.
Yeah. So, again, we're going to be moving into the Christmas season. I promise, I swear to God, the week after this, we'll have actual, genuine, good Christmas movies to talk about.
Or actual, genuine, good movies at all.
Yeah. Again, this was a fun episode, I think.
It
was a little bit
what was real fun about it? It was an hour.
It's about to end.
Yeah, it's about to be over.
So again, by the time you'll have heard this, we'll have already done the live episode of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade
via Cisco WebEx.
But this episode will be dropping on the 25th, and then we're going to put that out as the bonus, as its own standalone commentary bonus on the 26th.
That Saturday. Yep.
So that's that. And again, I hope you all have a very happy Thanksgiving. We're thankful for you. I know we're thankful for each other and thankful for this podcast. And so we hope you have a great holiday in whatever form that takes. This is Kyle.
This is Levi.
Take care. God bless.
Thank you very much. So nice. Goodbye.